buttons date back to the Indus Valley civilization. It's as old as 5,000 years back it was started. Anuj's brand Button Masala epitomizes the extreme love for buttons that he has. In Anuj Designs, the protagonist is the button. And the best part about him is this, that his creation fits and falls based on body shape change. So, even if you put on weight, you can change the size of your garment. And if you lose some weight, you can again change that. And in this episode, we have Anuj Sharma, designer, believer, dreamer, and founder of brand Button Masala. Welcome, Anuj.
Thank you very much.
Anuj, tell me a little about this whole fascination that you have with buttons. When did it begin? And how did you choose? I mean, you're the only one actually who I know in this entire landscape of designers does something as refreshing as what you do. How did it start?
So yeah, it came from an inspiration from I always did clothes which were made differently as a construction, because I always wanted to save time, and stitching was very tedious for me. So I thought that I would always do something that excites me in that sense, and it's cheaper and faster for me to do, not for the world. So I had seen this guy who had buttoned his shirt wrong, and from there came the idea that if there are many buttons and buttonholes, and the combination of that can actually make many garments. So I experimented with that, and I succeeded in making a piece of fabric which could convert into many thousand garments. Very versatile, very simple, just buttons and buttonholes. And slowly the rubber band got introduced in the system, and instead of stitching the buttons and buttonholes, we started inserting the buttons into the fabric. And of course, I wasn't really just fascinated about the button. I was more interested in the idea of creating a system which would be able to change garments in many possible ways, and largely to save my own time and my energy.
Largely to save your own time and energy. It doesn't appear like that because your designs are so amazingly gorgeous and they look beautiful. And when you say that you met this person who had worn his button in the wrong hole, I mean, and that's where the inspiration began. How did in the market, how did they respond to your completely innovative design process?
I did. I think I won many awards that year, and many people appreciated it. It was always talked about, and it's quite popular. But one thing that happened during the show is that I realized not many people were interested in changing the garment from one form to another, and not many people discussed the concept. Everybody was talking about color and silhouettes and how beautiful the garments were. So I realized that I did win many awards, but I not necessarily for the concept that I've produced. And I realized that it is not possible to come up with a concept which is so good and not being worn. And the reason for that was the people didn't want to bring about change. I realized that people have lost their faith in their own ability to be creative. Everybody said, no, we can't do it because we're not designers. And that's when I realized it's not the design that needs to change, it's the mindset of the people that needs to change. And I largely came back from the show and stopped doing fashion weeks and started focusing on how to change the mindset of the people rather than designs all the time.
But that must be really difficult, Anuj. I mean, to be alone in a environment that is so focused on networking, that is so focused on being part of all the shows and the parties and the rest of it. You chose to be different. I'm sure that affects the work, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does affect the work, of course. If you choose not to do the commercial part of the life, commercial work, which I was pretty all right with at that point of time, and but I basically got a bigger goal rather than a monthly or a yearly financial goal. I was never into financial fear or losing anything. I never had any form of fear, except that I always wanted my own comfort, and my comfort lies in the fact that one, whatever I've done should reach where it should be reaching. Second, I should be sleeping happy in the night, and I think that's always been the key. So I did end up changing my life pattern. I started focusing more on teaching and spreading the technique across the world. So I traveled a lot in all these 10 years, and I've taught like many thousand people, like close to 35,000, 40,000 people. And it's been good journey so far, yes.
So, which is among the travel? What is that one incident that you'd like to remember and share with our listeners that that really overwhelmed you? Because when you're going out and teaching something that's very new, it would be a very humbling and an overwhelming experience. Something that you remember and you can share with us.
No, the many, because it's really, I mean, it's definitely very easy to learn, and it's exciting. And any, I mean, the kind of people I've taught is huge varieties. I've taught in Jharkhand, in the internal part of Ranchi, Jharkhand, where you have tribals, lots of tribal women singing, and then making button masala. I've got like images from different parts of the world saying, oh, I made this here, I saved this, and I made this dress for the god, and I made curtains for my grandfather made the shirt. All kinds of images come by, and it's not just one. I think absolutely all kinds of teachings have been fantastic for me.
And do they follow this ahead in their life? I mean, the people who, like, for example, Jharkhand is not something that too many designers on the mainstream fashion would even go there and teach, the artisans, or because people, I would believe that the tribals are very, very hands on with the lives that they lead there. But where do you see this going from, the space that you're in?
The aim I have is slightly bigger. It's not 5 years, 10 years. I think my goal is to bring this technique about into the world, and it's been so stuck at the idea of stitching as the only way of making clothes, that it is very difficult to change the system. And for that, I have to really spend a lot of time and energy. I'm not a marketing person, also. Otherwise, sometimes marketing helps you to grow things faster. So here I am stuck without marketing in my because I'm very purist in that sense. I believe that the technique would spread. So teaching is the goal. I mean, spread it as much as you can, because if there are people who are doing it, then it'll automatically spread. It cannot be just spread by selling the garment, because selling the garment would mean they just wear it and the consumer system remains the same. But once you have people around you who can make some garment and then change it every day and wear it that way, people will automatically get inspired, because people like to get inspired by their own kind of people rather than people like designers. If I'm not designer, then I'm not going to be inspired by that. I'm going to be inspired by someone of my kind who's doing something and say, hey, he's doing it, she's doing it. So the spread has to be bigger. So I'm looking at it kind of becoming as big as stitching, and would like people to experience the joy of drapes through this system.
So, have you gone into the fashion schools and given this as a talk or a lecture? Because I think that would also be one way of really inspiring youngsters, to start looking beyond the pin, the needle, and the thread, and using buttons and rubber bands. Because I have some of your garments, and they've been there with me for years now, from the changes in my body from the earlier days to now, and it's amazing. And have you gone into institutes and have some of the kids started a part of their design work with using buttons?
Yeah, I mean, when I say 35,000 people, it's not possible to teach other people. It's obviously a large part of those 35,000 people is colleges across, I mean, pretty much every college in the country that could afford to call me, or that would like to call me. I've been there and I taught all of, like, so many. I mean, it just and I keep getting imageries of people making the work and reproducing it. There is a little laziness in Indian system of not trying after they've learned too many times, because the colleges also don't allow them to shift from button, like stitching, to button masala, because they think I am the one who's designed it, so people can't copy it. Whereas I am the one who's saying please copy it and please use it, because it's nicer, cheaper, and the results have been proven to them as well. But everybody wants to force everybody to go through the tougher route and a longer route, and where the output might not be great, the experience might not be great, but it is the system, so you can't change the system, because they've already bought the machines, they've already bought the cutting machines, and then there is already a design of the course based on stitching. Now, how can you make a garment without stitching and be better and nicer and faster and cheaper? Because no, that's not what we're looking for. So the education has to support this system very well. If it does, then we would have been 3 times, 4 times, 5 times larger as a community already in last 10 years.
So are you telling me that this is basically in India, and you think that if it was, in the international market, you would have had a better platform? And in India, we're really stuck with the age-old systems, and we don't want to shift. Is that true?
No, I won't say that it would. I mean, of course, the psyche of people doing something and then following it up is better in the European or the Western culture, because if they spend 2 hours learning something, they would like to practice it. In India, it's not like that. People do it for certificate at many times. So it took me a lot of time to actually get people to inspire each other. I mean, it's not me who should be inspiring all the time. People should inspire each other. They would not be able to use button masala. I mean, they will use button masala in the Western world, and but they won't use it for the drapes. They will use it for their stitched, like the tight fitted clothes. Whereas it works really well for us because we need to wear drapes, and the technique works much nicer and smarter for drapes because then it's faster also. They would like to use it, but they won't use it as much for the drapes. They will definitely use it for many other products in their lives, and tops and jackets, and not for drapes.
So what are the kind of fabrics you essentially work with, Anuj, that makes it a lot more easier, with buttons? Is it any and every fabric, or is there a special fabric?
Any and every fabric. I do have my favorites, but
what is it? Tell me your
my
favorite
favorite is
fabric.
cotton and knits and transparent fabrics. But every fabric looks amazingly beautiful. The size of button will change with the size of thickness of the fabric, and that's it. Everything else remains the same.
Who's your style icon, Anuj?
I don't have any.
Yeah?
No, I don't look up to anybody, unfortunately. That's how I've grown. I've never looked at anybody else's work, or because otherwise it's very difficult to shift yourself out of it and then say, okay, I want to do something that I haven't seen before. Now that's not possible. If you've seen so much, how are you going to?
Yeah, you're not going to be original.
Yeah, so it's never. Anyways, there's not much original. But if you've seen, then it becomes even more difficult. So I don't think that it's not that button masala has not been done before, or some part of it or some kind of it. It's pretty much like tie and dye. But because I didn't care about looking at who has done what, I've always gone ahead and done what I wanted to do. And then you realize that since you're not looking at anything, you're just going ahead and doing what you want to do. And it turns out to be unique, eventually end up unique, not like right away maybe. If you take something and keep working on it, it will be unique.
So, Anuj, this seems like a very lonesome path, with. When I hear you, because, all heroes in society, it takes very long, for the market per se, the consumers per se, to even understand the space from which you come. Has it been tough on you emotionally?
Oh, no, definitely not emotionally. I don't get bothered about what the world is thinking, doing, or supporting. But yes, it is tough to be at the place where I am, because it's been 10, 15 years of sustainable work, and still it's people in India are still very hesitant to support my work, because everybody is so agreed on the system that they're part of, that it is very difficult for them to accept anybody like. And wholeheartedly. I mean, I don't think that they don't like what I'm doing, but the lack of wholehearted love for what I'm doing and support for me has been definitely lacking.
Why do you say that?
Because we're so tuned to the system that we're part of. It is very difficult.
Where would you seek the support?
Where would anybody and everybody, like industry, journalists, people who buy, consumers. You're going to buy it. People have been buying the same garment for 25 years, thinking they're buying something new. And when they see my garment and it's actually very new, but instead of supporting, they would just still go for something which is a brand name which is far more popular, or but it suits the idea of what everybody else is wearing. So fashion in India is really not fashionable. I believe shopping is in the trend. If shopping wasn't in trend, fashion won't sell. And it's not really that people know what's fashion, what they should be wearing, what they should be trying.
What do you mean when you say fashion for people?
Individual character building, individual comfort, individual character building. You wear something that makes you happy, it's something that excites you, and it doesn't have to match with anybody. You could be different, slightly different, very different, or no different at all, doesn't matter. But as long as you're happy and you do things, it's not about clothes. Fashion isn't about clothes. It's a mannerism that it brings about with what you wear. If you wear a sari and if you don't behave what a person in sari does, which is how you walk and how, so you can put a sari on a woman, which is, you can take any diva from the Western world and put a sari on her, she won't be able to carry it off as well as anybody like Gayatri Devi or any other.
I completely agree with you, Anuj, on this one.
Yeah, and so the fashion isn't about clothes. Clothes, I mean, I could carry any clothes if I ever want to. It's the attitude that matters, and that attitude should come by with the clothes. When you wear a jacket, you can't move your hands. That's why people in the Western world stand straight and don't move so much. Whereas because it's hot here and we can move our hands and we like to raise our hands because of of the heat. We move a lot and we talk a lot and we express a lot with our hands. They don't do it because their clothes don't allow them. So every clothing brings in a behavior, and it should be thought as a behavior far more than just the color and the print that we're talking about, which has been overdone anyways. Every print has been done and every imagery has been created on a fabric, and we still have that 15 garments that everybody has.
What are those 15 garments?
Trousers and a bifurcated skirt, short skirt. Then it's the length that matters. But if you look at it, there's a skirt and there's a bifurcated skirt, which is trouser. And then you have a top, and then you have a dress which goes up till the knee. So it's a long dress or a short dress or a very short dress. So top which becomes longer than it becomes. So it's basically that. There is no others. Like we in the whole country in India, we wear one silhouette.
So you dress up women. So there must be a certain type of a silhouette that you really think that you would like to dress up, or is it all shapes and sizes that you enjoy?
I like simple garments. I don't like complicated garments. I don't like to make. I believe that the fabrics should do the most of the work. Embroidery is lesser in the numbers, so embroidery should only contribute that much. But unfortunately, India is so focused on embroidery because we have cheap labor. Europeans can't afford it because it's very expensive. Of course, they also don't need it. We need it because we only wear one layer, so we had to show every affluence or every possibility of greatness in that one layer of garment because it's hot. So we started doing block printing, embroideries, all of those things. We've gone overboard with it because we've never looked at the shapes and the forms. As I said, there is only one silhouette in India we wear. So I can't even say that I like these silhouettes and that silhouette because it's not possible to have many silhouettes in the garments. The second silhouette that people wear in India is the wedding ghagra that a woman wears.
Lehenga.
Yeah, that's the second visible. Otherwise, every designer, most of the designers would say my new collection has new silhouette, but there is no silhouette. We just use the Western words without even meaning anything about it, and the audience also think there are silhouettes. I bet if people can show me silhouettes, more than 2 or 3 in this country, I bet. I can bet anything that people want to. And I'm not talking about like fashion shows. I'm talking about everyday life. So I'm just saying that we need to be more Indian in our approach to what we wear.
So Anuj, tell me something. Which part of India do you hail from? And is there some nostalgia from where you have grown up that emanates in your designing process when you sit down to create a garment?
I mean, I'm from Rajasthan. I'm from Jodhpur originally.
Which is the most amazing place for arts and craft, and the silhouettes also there.
No, but it's not mostly the clothing that I mean, I do like the women's attire and what men wear in India generally. But I'm talking about the local garments. But what Rajasthan really taught me was material respect. Like whatever you have, it might not be enough, and therefore whatever you have, you use it smartly, you use it with love, you pass it on, you share the resources, and that's what I've done in my work. My work comes from my larger inspiration in life comes from where I am from, which is Rajasthan, where we had to I wore most like second-hand shirts right from the childhood, and my mother wouldn't like it, but I would still go and buy it because I thought there was nothing wrong with it. And it's close to 30 years after that or 32 33 years later that the whole wearing of or upcycling and recycling has come in. But I've been doing it again, not to save the world, but to save my own time and energy, as I said before. And it comes from Rajasthan. The whole miserness, love for material, taking care of it, being mindful of what you're using as a material. Just because you can afford it does not mean you should buy it.
How many garments do you own? I need to come in and ransack your wardrobe to see how many do you have and how many ties do you have.
I have quite a lot of clothes actually in my wardrobe, with largely very simple t-shirts and shirts. And they're also there in numbers because I mean I have t-shirts which are 22, 23, 24 years old.
And they don't wear out.
No, they won't, because you have many, so you wear them once, twice, thrice, 4 times a year. And the one, I mean, of course, then I have favorites which I keep wearing.
What are your favorites?
Oh, anything easy. I mean, I don't really, but as in the ones which don't look really old, and I don't look like a rag picker. I now if I'm going to teach in a college, there are, so it's really not favorite, but it's just that they're easy to put on and leave the house.
Apart from buttons, what else interests you, Anuj? You're a man who's creative, so what are the other things that inspires you, when you get down to you as a person?
I enjoy sports a lot of sports. People who play, I play a lot of sports, all kinds of sports. So sports excite me a lot, anytime, every time, full day. I'm so sports, music, as in songs, the Hindi songs, Indian songs. I write poetry, a lot of poetry, and poetry is exciting for me. I like mountains, and so I've been doing climbing and trekking. I like to have time.
I would love you to recite one of your poems today for our listeners.
Yeah, sure, why not? What would you like to hear about?
Whichever, which is your favorite, which you think that the listeners would enjoy.
You can't discriminate your own words and get into favorite zones. It's on greed. Okay, so since we're in fashion, it should be on greed. Yeah.
Irshad.
Irshad. So Hindi है lalach. So we always think greed is bad. Of course it is in many places. It's not the greed that is bad. It's what we greedy for is what matters. So this one particular poem is about happy forms of greed. कि फिर से मोहब्बत करने का एक इशारा दे दे, नजरों में नजर पकड़ने का एक नजरिया दे दे, उड़ती हुई परियों का वो एक मंजर दे दे, या लौटते मछुआरों के समंदर का एक किनारा दे दे, बरसों के बाद लाए जो खत वो एक डाकिया दे दे, या होली के गुलाल से सना बचपन का वो एक कुर्ता दे दे, दोबारा खता करने का एक बहाना दे दे, फिर से मोहब्बत करने का एक इशारा दे दे, कि नजरों में नजर पकड़ने का एक नजरिया दे दे, कि कितना.
My goodness, that is beautiful, Anuj. That is amazing. It is gorgeous. And so we come to the end of our episode. Thank you so much, Anuj. And for our listeners, Anuj is single. Anuj is...
No, that's not why I did that.
So I know that. I'm sure you didn't.
I didn't even start the poetry that I had in mind. It wasn't even about greed. But anyways, I realized after finishing, I said, where is the poetry that I wanted to say in my head? But anyways, this was beautiful nonetheless.
This is gorgeous. And Anuj, we can find him with his amazing designs and his brand called Button Masala. Thank you for taking out the time, and
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Look forward to hearing you and having you more and more.
Thank you, Mohua.
Thank you,
And
Anuj.
For the listeners, if anybody wants to learn the technique, they can always get in touch with us. And
would you please share your Instagram account, the handle?
Yeah, it's Button Masala on Instagram, and they can find posts which explains if they want to, and they definitely, people would love to see what I do, and I would be happy if they saw. Thank you very much. Thank you for taking your time out for us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.